right, welcome back, everyone. We nice to see everyone. Shana Tova, healthy and happy year for everybody. Is Rabbi Joseph on as well? Yes, good. Okay, good. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. I think a number of you have come on for the first time. Just for those of you who are who have just joined us, we are keeping this particular Zoom group together for everything that's going on for this afternoon. So you can stay on if you want to, or you can go off for each one of these different events this afternoon. This section, we're going to be talking, this is our sermon talk back. As I think a number of you have participated in these, which we've done on Yom Kippur, and we'll do again on Yom Kippur. But we thought we'd have an opportunity just to have some conversations about, I would say, both on the sermons, the two sermons that you heard, and I would also add the uniqueness of the service that we experienced. Just the reality of what it was to create an online experience. This is, as far as anyone's able to tell, the first time in our temple's 161-year history that our services have been on Zoom. I've been on YouTube, and how difficult not to be together, but that we were able to create something here. In our next session, we're going to talk a little bit about the thinking behind that service and how we made some of the decisions we made. Don't want to do that as much now, but I'd love to just hear some reactions. Rabbi Joseph and I would both love to hear some reactions to sermons. And to your experience on Rosh Hashanah till now.
Rabbi, I wanted to say that some of the parts of the service that I really enjoyed was not the service itself, but some of the close-ups of part of the interior architecture of the temple that, you know, we're so far away from at any time, and they're just so beautiful.
Yeah,
so
thank you
for that.
Thank you. That was again, we'll talk about that in the next group, but that was very intentional. One of the things that we were really thinking about in terms of missing the space was the architecture, missing those stained glass windows, and that was part of our conversation early on. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, please.
Well, I think what was accomplished, I mean, you've been doing it with the Shabbat services also, which sometimes I watch, but I don't participate visually with it. But it makes me feel like we're still all together. I know it's Zoom, I know it's virtual, but I see your faces, I hear you, I see our beautiful temple, and I loved everything about the services last night, this morning. It was so soul satisfying, and I can't thank you guys enough. Both sermons gave so much. I don't want to take too much time. I know there are others who want to talk, but I will later on jump in about some things about the sermons when they come up. But I just want to thank you. You have brought us together, even though we're apart, and that means everything.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful. I'm very grateful.
My son watched from San Francisco and actually recruited 3 of his friends also to watch, and then they had a communal virtual dinner, huge dinner afterwards. And he commented on the beauty of the synagogue. He's been here a couple of times, but what did you do to the wood? I mean, that was, I could not get my eyes off those panels. Somebody must have taken the toothbrush to them. They were just absolutely so warm and welcoming. It just was wonderful. But he particularly liked the sermon. I was a rabbi last night, and I had a friend with me who is very conservative. I don't understand that. But anyway, I was a little nervous because I knew what you were going to, talk about. And only once did she grumble. And that was when you started talking about the fires. And she said forest management really, under her breath. But she told me that she really enjoyed the sermon. She didn't grunt or grumble or make comments or side views. And I really feel that she got what you wanted her to hear, even though it came through a brain that is different from ours. And so I did appreciate it. I was very nervous because she and I were the only two people in the room. But I was thrilled with it. You covered everything so beautifully, and yet certain people's names were never mentioned, and we didn't talk about certain people. We just knew what we needed to do. And I really appreciated that.
Thank you very much.
So, Rabbi, my 98-year-old mother, who is in one of those places, totally isolated since the beginning of March, totally flummoxed with the computer. Finally, we got someone there to help her plug in properly and actually push the button to run the service. She was so thrilled that you spoke so powerfully to the issues of the day. It reminded her of her younger years when she would hear such a voice. And so actually, it's the first service that she's actually heard through her hearing deficit. So this format actually worked for her once it got started.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. Thank you. But did she have headphones? Why was she able to hear it better?
She said it just come out of the computer. She said that they set the volume. They set the volume so high she had to take her hearing aids off. I can't tell you sitting in the sanctuary how difficult it was for her to hear. So here she is. Okay, I'm out.
No, thank you. That's really important feedback. And I don't know if she if they set up the captioning for her, because that's also something I really wanted to make sure people knew about.
I bit my tongue from asking them to go that far with it, because just getting her sitting at the computer and not pressing the wrong clicks, it was enough. It was beautiful.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Great. You're welcome to disagree with us too. And also, anybody who wants Rabbi Joseph's challah recipe.
Something else I really liked was that most of us have no idea who the board members are. And to be able to see them for more than a split second, I thought was really fascinating. And even more fascinating was the average age of a trustee at the temple. And I think that's wonderful. We need to get that age group and the age group below that to come to this synagogue. And if our leadership has that mental setting because of how old they are, I think that will be very helpful. So I appreciated that very much.
We're blessed with a really wonderful group of trustees. And I'm glad you're able to identify them, and we don't always see them up close, and we don't, even when they're reading during services, you don't normally see their names.
Right.
So I think that's nice, but thank you. There's a really nice diversity, and it's a very engaged and caring board. Thank you.
I just wanted to jump in to say how amazing it felt to have Raina and what a gift it was to me personally. For my children grew up with Raina, and she meant so much to them. And we were able to tell Drew, who lives in New York now, that Raina's back, and he was so excited to hear that she's part of the clergy, and her and Cantor Kahana's voices together were so magical. And what an amazing gift that they both bring, that all of the clergy brings to us. It's tears flowing.
Thank you, Rhonda. That's terrific. Yeah, we're thrilled to have her. I can't believe Drew's in New York. I gotta get some details on this. That sounds pretty wonderful. But thank you. Yes, we're really thrilled to have Cantor Green, to have her back in the community, and she's just been so lovely to work with, and it's all just started. But this was a great way to introduce her. I'm glad everybody got a chance to see her up close and her participation. Hi, Roscoe. I'm seeing your face popped up. How are you doing?
So today is the 33rd anniversary of my dad's death, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to spend the day.
Yeah, lovely. Well, thank you for spending this part with us.
I've been watching before.
Yeah, good.
I tried to tune into what you said about Justice Ginsburg, and I couldn't. My iPad wouldn't grab it, but maybe later it will.
Oh, maybe it might have just gone up. It's possible. I'm sorry, I never knew your father, but
you would have liked him.
I'm sure.
He would agree with me that you're the reincarnation of Rabbi Nodell.
Thank you. Sherry, you holding your hand up?
I am, because I've been thinking a lot of everything you guys talked about in your sermons, but also the choice that you made to use Bereshit today. Oh, last night was the first time I could step outside in 2 weeks. The air has been so bad and I'm asthmatic. And I stepped out on the back deck, and there was light and there was sky. And I felt so much gratitude for just the beauty of life. And it was there, you know? And when you used Bereshit and God made light, and I thought, yes. And this morning, I even saw the sun. It actually shone. And I thought, that is a miracle. So that was a very bold move, because it's so iconoclastic to just change what you're reading instead of the cycle of the Torah, the way you did that. And I wanted to ask how you came to the decision to be so bold.
I'll save that for the next session. I hope you'll be on, because that's when we're really going to talk about the decision making on the services. So I think there's a story there. Rabbi Joseph, is there a story there? There's probably a story there.
Anyway, I was just going to say that really enjoyed the services very much. Very impressive how well it executed in your sermons, and all the additional people too, commentary from the Pike Girl to the Peltz message, a lot of interjected good messages. And I had contacted Rabbi Joseph, several people, but now I'm contacting more. It's an important message to outreach and think about
very
people.
Good.
Yeah, so easy. But anyway, it was very impressive and beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'm
hold on to that, the 12 and 3. Rabbi?
Well, I was just going to say, I'm glad to hear it, buddy. And it's not the easiest thing to do. So you're setting an example by reminding people to make your list, reach out. Some people have contacted me asking for names. And so it's great.
Yes. And it was nice to see your kids.
Yeah. I was just saying, they are actually outside. If you had been on the family event a little bit ago, Josh can attest to how the children were doing on that call. And actually it's amazing to be able, like as Sherry was saying, to kick everyone outside today for the first time, to be able to go outside. I mean, actually, we were talking, because said it'll happen more in the next conversation about the making of, but it's now, everything was recorded a while ago. And in the family service, we did a bunch of videos, like outside videos that we inserted. And one of the things like that I happen to talk about, and it's beautiful outside when we're recording these videos because it was in August. And I was like, oh, I'm so thankful for my breath and all this. And, you know, last week we said, oh my goodness, you know, we put a disclaimer on the service. It says, you know, film before the wildfires. And then you wake up this morning and it was like, I am really thankful for my breath. I mean, I'm nothing like going through something like the fires and being full of smoke and not being able to leave your house and not being, you know, we just get trapped in all these different places the last 6 months. And now to be like, dear God, I am so thankful for my breath in this moment, and can go outside for the first time and take a deep breath. It really, a new year blessing. We'll take that New Year blessing for sure.
And some of us are going to be going to, I'm sorry, Bonnie.
No, I just said agree, so please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Some of us are going to be going to Tashlich this afternoon. So there are several spots around town where we're going to be doing these. And so that whole thing of venturing outside, and we were like the past couple of days, every morning we're like, can we do it? Can we do it? What's the index? What number does it have to drop to in order to do it? But I think this whole thing of actually being able to venture outside today on Rosh Hashanah will be really wonderful.
So speaking of Tashlich, I have a technical question for Rabbi Joseph, because we're going to be joining her at the Lower Maclay trailhead. Are we allowed to throw bread in the streams?
You're not supposed to.
Okay.
I would say my understanding is that birdseed is okay, and that I will have magic paper that is supposed to be okay for the environment. Apparently, bread is really bad for
birds and things,
for everything.
Yeah.
It's also hard to write your sins on bread.
It's hard to write your sins.
Very true. But you know, you transmit them.
And I was really afraid that people were going to start bringing their sourdough starters, and that's like too precious.
I was going to say, no one is bringing their sourdough starters to get rid of.
Really, they're collecting them.
Rachel, I'd like to just comment that I really appreciated your addressing the transactional versus community nature of membership. I think that that's a very difficult message to get across. I think you handled it beautifully, and it's a big topic, as I know you know. But I just really appreciate your addressing it. It's actually one of the first times I've listened to it being addressed straight on that way, and just think it's very important.
Yeah, Jim, I was in this whole feeling of community at Beth Israel, at least in our experience, is pretty unique. Any of the synagogues that we belong to, and then in New Jersey, and for a period of time, we were shul hopping.
We were not in the in crowd.
Yeah, because you had to be in the in crowd. But here, we talk to everybody, and everybody talks to us.
By the way, one place we were for a long time, the in crowd consisted of people who were in kindergarten together.
Yeah,
that's how it's
hard to break into that group.
It's very hard to break into that group, but it was really easy to create or feel very much part of this community. And I really appreciate that. And I thank you all for that.
All right, well, let me add, since Sally is here, one of the earlier times we showed up for some event, I don't know whether
it was Rosh Hashanah, the first Rosh Hashanah.
Sally's mother, Eve, was sitting right behind us. We didn't know, we knew from nobody. And she leaned over and said, "You're new here, aren't you?"
Yeah, and that was one of our big introductions. It was just immediate. We knew this was the place. So thank you.
and I love that story. I know Sally's going to respond, because that's exactly what I hope and struggle in addressing it head on, right? Is that we are a community of ourselves. And so it's exactly Eve saying, hey, I haven't met you before. And that's really hard to do. I mean, it's really, and then in this environment, it's even more difficult, right? How do we reach out when we're not physically gathering, right? How do we remain connected in this way? And that's, and part of, and I mean, Jim, I wasn't, you know, Sarah could tell you in my first draft, I was not as directly addressed as I did, because even I was nervous to sort of like really put it out there and then do that. You know, what are we going to do? And we have to figure that out together, is my hope, right? That it's an ongoing conversation.
But there's also the element of when anyone needs rabbinic caring and time, we need you there. So there's two elements of it, and I think, and you addressed both of them. But if we only, as you said, if we only look at it as transactional, what did I get this year? Well, then we don't have the breadth of resources. If we all took that approach, then it's not there for us. So it's both. And I felt that you addressed that, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think that
one of the things you guys, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, no, we can hear you, Josh. Go ahead.
Okay. No, well, one thing I wanted to thank you for the beautiful sermon. And then second, I wanted to touch on what you're saying about the community, and that perhaps it has a little further reach than what you guys realize. I'm actually in Los Angeles watching. My parents got married at your guys' synagogue, and I have a lot of family from Oregon, and I grew up there when I was young, but it's been a while since I've been able to be back there and see it in person. But it was really nice, you know, memories of being able to see the synagogue again. So I think the nice aspect of technology is allowing us to reconnect with maybe some of our roots, and being able to see with areas that, you know, was, you know, a community that we can, even though we're further away geographically, that we can still kind of touch base with what we've had in, you know, in the past. And maybe I do come, you know, there on occasion when I do visit Oregon, which, you know, with everything going on isn't as much, but I want to tell you that I do appreciate all of your, I go to some of your Shabbats as well. And so I appreciate everything that you guys have done, and I want to thank you guys for that.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I appreciate that. It's nice to hear that kind of connection, and you know, all the different ways that the technology allows. Thank you.
So one
Sally,
other thing.
I think you were. Oh,
sorry.
Go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to let you know, I was trying to donate, and when I signed up online, and I never got an email. I realized it finally was in my spam, but I'm not sure if you have other congregants that may have that issue, that not realizing that they're trying to reach out to, you know, donate to the synagogue, but not finding a way to. So I just making you guys aware in case there was others that may have that issue.
Thank you. Well, thanks, Josh. And I think Josh Kaczynski, our executive director, is on as well, and we'll have somebody look into what issues might that have been.
Okay.
Sally, I think you want to say something.
Yeah, I had maybe two comments. One is that I've found that since we're virtual, in some ways our connections are enhanced. I think we don't take it for granted when we connect with other people. And so there, you know, it's definitely different, but there may be some ways that it's, you know, that we realize how important it is when we might have taken it for granted in the past. And the other thing I would say about building community would be, yes, and we can take it even further. We are a big community, which is, you know, gives us a lot of strength, but it also makes it harder sometimes to connect with each other. And so I think we, can do even more. And reaching out, and I'm looking at someone on the screen, Judith, who was a regular service attender on Friday nights. And then she stepped into the role of being a greeter as a sort of a newcomer, and knocked it out of the park. So we've got a lot of potential that we still could, use to make our connections and our community stronger.
Let me tail on to Sally, because I belong to a very small synagogue in New Jersey. So when we came here, it was like, it's huge. It was very off-putting. But we walked into a Shabbat on the plaza and we met Anise, and Anise just adopted us and made us part of a group of people who all sat together and brought other people in. And it was just this amazing experience of just being completely, overwhelmingly welcomed. And then she died. And Tammy and I felt like, oh my God, we have this huge obligation because we have to be Anise, but we don't know how to be Anise, but we only know how to be us. So that's why the greeting and some of the other things she and I have done. But I think when you get warmly welcomed like that, you feel like you did pick up an obligation to make that happen for other people and reach out and connect and try to make, I always say, if people walk in the door at CBI, they don't feel welcome the day they walk in, they may not come back, but if they feel welcomed, your odds are so increased. And it's an amazing thing, but it takes responsibility and obligation on each of our part to do whatever it is we kind of can.
Thank you for that.
So can I just say, I think that is in large measure due to our current clergy and our current leadership with Josh, because I can say that 30 years ago, when I moved to Portland, I hate to say this, but we, didn't join Beth Israel because we didn't feel it was welcoming. And I think that in the last, say, 15 years, that this congregation has become really remarkable. And I'm so happy when I hear Judith talk like that, because, that's how we felt. We suddenly felt like it was a welcoming congregation, and this is where we wanted to be. And we've been here for a long time now. But I love to see that new people come in and just get welcomed. And I think that is, and we're able to do that too. I think maybe sometimes even better when we're online. Like when we're doing Torah study or whatever on a Saturday morning, which we thought would be kind of clunky and has become a really kind of streamlined little process now. And people, if somebody new is on, we notice and we introduce and we talk to them. And I think the one advantage, if there is an advantage to doing some of this stuff online, is that you get not sitting far away from somebody. Everybody's a peer. A rabbi's window is the same size as Steve's window or Sally's window. Or right now, we're all equal. And not that we aren't in general, but I mean, it's really easy to say, hey, look who's up in the left corner that I don't know. Oh, it's Josh, or whatever. So I think that is one of the advantages. And I think we, as a community, and you guys, what you've done, with the really remarkable production work that you've done on the High Holy Day series has just kind of made that even stronger.
Thank you, Steve. And look, I don't want to say anything about what things were, things, I think everything goes through a certain kind of rhythm. And what I was really struck, I want to go a little bit back to Susan and Barney as another example of what everybody has been saying, that it's great hearing from you that Eve reached out to you right away and said something to you, but the truth is, the two of you, as one example, you've been all in, from the moment you came. It's so much about that you've participated, that you've brought people in, that you've been a leader, that you've been engaged. And I think really if you want to, the secret sauce is not anything about, the clergy really. It's people who say, I really, I want to do, I want to be, I want to be in the kind of community that you're describing, Steve. I want this to be the kind of community where we're all together. And I think that, that to me was what Rabbi Joseph was talking about in such a beautiful way, that all about taking these strands of the challah and wrapping them together. But it's, we're the strands. We are all that component, and it's everybody doing it. I think it's an exciting time. And Jim, Sherry, I'll get you just one second. I just wanted to respond, Jim, what you were saying about, I agree with, the rabbi's courage to talk about things like transactional relationships. And, it's like, this is the stuff that is, the communal geeks like to talk about, and it's not really things that's easy to talk about in a large setting. And I think she did it beautifully and engagingly. And we do have to talk about it. We really can't be afraid of it. We are, and the pandemic, as she said, has accelerated the trends that were already happening. And we've been talking about this issue of transactional and moving away from transactional, even moving away from the term membership. And the pandemic has really just moved that forward in ways that no one anticipated. So really thinking about, now is the time to be thinking about what community is and what each of our responsibilities are to bring that, to build community, which I think was very much her message.
Well, we know for sure change is constant, and the change just happened to go a lot faster and cause you and everybody else to say, how can we approach the needs? And the electronic situation is one that's going to impact us a lot more than we recognize. It already has, and it's going to just accelerate.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jerry. And you've always talked about that notion of change and how important that change is, and to be aware of what our advantages are and how we can use it. So I think we're really learning about these technologies. Steve gave a good example of that in Torah study. And I think this is part of our new reality. I mean, we're the ways that they're all of the disadvantages of us being, we're not together again. We can't hug. We can't, it's very hard to be apart. And the technologies are breaking down barriers, as Joshua said, that, you can be in Los Angeles and still be a part of our service, and you don't have to worry about parking. In Los Angeles, you're worried about traffic, but we like to complain. What do we know from traffic? The LA people know about it. But the ways that technology is breaking down barriers, the ways that technology can allow people to participate in something before they're really sure if it's okay, and listen, that's pretty fantastic. So I think we have to continue to be thinking about how that helps us build community. Sherry?
Okay, I wanted to first say I love Rabbi Joseph's metaphor with a challah and how it becomes a whole greater than the sum of its parts when you knit those strands together. And that's what being a community is, and why we all have to have a minyan to pray. I mean, this is part and inherent in our Judaism. But I also wanted to address this technology thing. My 100-year-old aunt, Sham, passed away from COVID. She was put at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in LA, and nobody was allowed in. So she was dying alone. And one of my first cousins there somehow managed to have the hospital allow her to come in. They put her in full PPE and brought her into the room where my aunt was dying. And she got on Zoom with the other members of the family, and they all got to say something to my beloved aunt. And the way Judy described seeing her mother, because Judy was there, was her face relaxed and she could see some recognition again. And so I believe that helped her die in peace with the love of family with her, even though it was virtual. And I think there is an upside to this downside, because we can connect with people we love everywhere in every circumstance. Then we were able to go to a Zoom Shiva for her. And we've been to Zoom weddings. And that and watching your bat mitzvah story with Coco was that. And watching her express what you were trying to talk about with community. This is, in some ways, a very brave new world, but I think it's also wondrous. I mean, there's nothing that's going to ever substitute from us really being together in a room, but this is good. And many's the time I have not had the strength or energy with some of my chronic stuff to get over to a service, but I get to see them. So thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
I think it teaches us that it's not a zero-sum game. It's not an either or, that the world that we're building is going to encompass lots of pieces that we're learning right now. And we don't know exactly what that's going to look like. But we do know that as humans, we crave connection. And so when we can be together and when we can hug each other, we are going to want to do that as humans want to do that. And we, are learning that technology, that we can embrace it. And when it works, that it is truly such a blessing and a gift. And, and so how do we continue to incorporate technology to reach people? I mean, I am thinking about some of the people that I now see on a regular basis that I certainly didn't see on a regular basis because they were unable to leave their homes. And all of a sudden, when they learn how to use technology and we can have this sort of intimacy of face to face. I mean, that's the, in the Torah, panim al panim, to be able to even be like this, like maybe it was Susan or so talking about the architecture, like, even when you're in the building, you're not that close. And so even when we're in the building, we don't see each other's faces in the way that we're seeing now. And so, building and the connections across, I mean, the innovation in all parts of our world right now in this new world, and especially in the Jewish world, is just unbelievable. All the different resources that we can tap in. And I am one that believes that all ships rise. And so, through supporting each other and innovation, I mean, we're really, there is so much. I shy away from the silver lining. It's not my favorite metaphor, but I do believe in the sort of Mitzrayim of like, it's the tightness before we leave, but then, you leave the constriction into the expanse, and that I know we're headed towards the expanse. And, and that's the exciting part is, what are we going to be creating? I mean, I get really excited thinking about 5 years from now. And I was saying earlier, I don't know, it's so fun with these Zooms just running into each other. I'm not sure who I was saying it to or when I was saying it, whatever that, we live in this world, we focus on what's right in front of us in this moment. Like today I could take a deep breath, and that is really important to focus on. And we can't only exist in this moment. We have to exist in the long term as well. In everything that's happening in the world, that we believe that we will continue to evolve and change and the universe grow. So I think that's also the really exciting part.
Just want to say that you actually had a great metaphor. You rise to the occasion, and you did, and so did your friend. I just had to say that.
Thank you. That's good.
Took a while, but you rose.
That's what the bakers do. I want to give a real world example of the sort of virtual to reality. that I think it's really kind of fascinating. It's sort of the sociological thing. So, you know, as Rabbi talked about, bar and bat mitzvahs are great examples of they tend to crystallize things in terms of what's happening in the Jewish world. So, you know, there was an era where it was a kind of anti-religion era, and it's like, how do you make bar mitzvah that's like, you don't want to make it so Jewish. And out of that arose, it was kind of an East Coast thing. Some caterers created this thing where the central part of the bar mitzvah was this ritual that was invented of 13 candles. Are you all familiar with this? It's the, you know, it was, I mean, when I was in New York, it's like every single bar mitzvah, this was the most important thing. The kids maybe worked on their speeches a little bit, but they really worked on what they're supposed to say during the 13 candles, because they invite someone to come up and light the candles, and they have to do a poem, and it has to rhyme in the, you know, the poetry of da 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 da, and it's like deadly, right? But that was the ritual, and it was spoken about, and it just had to do with catering halls. And out of this pandemic, so one of the first things that happened in the pandemic, when we started to do on the Zoom B'nai Mitzvah, and people were so upset about it. They didn't want to do it. They're missing their parties, and they were really sad about missing the party, and they had to really transition into this until they had the bar mitzvahs. And they were like, everybody reported to us, we weren't like seeding it. They came to us and they said, this was so meaningful, having the Torah in our home and having that ritual in our home. And yes, we couldn't be with everybody, but we saw them all on Zoom and how meaningful it was. But the thing that started happening immediately were the drive-bys. So right after the service, there was a parade outside their people's homes, all their friends, all the kids' friends, driving past, honking their horns, waving to them. There was someone with they had a chair going up through the sunroof, you know, to do the Hava Nagila. It was so adorable, but it wasn't a one-time thing. This is happening like with all of these Zoom bar mitzvahs. Now this new ritual that's been created of the drive-by, the drive-by hora. And it probably isn't going to last past the pandemic because people are going to be able to be together. But this creativity that's just become standardized without someone saying, hey, here's the thing we're going to do, right? I'm going to invent this new ritual. It was spontaneous. And I just, that creativity, that engagement, that sense that, you know, what's missing is that I can't show you that I really care for you. And it got created. And so, you know, I think we're in this time where all kinds of new things are going to be created. And we're going to look back and say, it's always been that way. Like, you know, Moses came down from Sinai and said, thou shalt do a drive-by, you know, and I don't know what it's going to be. Nobody knows what it's going to be. We are in this time of creating it, but.
You were going to say something?
Sam.
Yeah.
That help with community are the things that we're going to.
And, you know, it was always my impression, Rabbi, that for a lot of the kids, the party was the most important element of the bar and bat mitzvah. But I think with these Zoom bar and bat mitzvahs, that's the most important part now.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing. That they really, really care about the ceremony.
Yeah.
You know, and it's great. And they really care about being in the sanctuary, which is also very interesting. So we're doing B'nai Mitzvah in the sanctuary. But anyway, I just wanted to give that as an illustration of the you know, the creativity and how we really don't know what's going to be, what's coming next.
So I have a couple of YouTube questions. Number one was, I tuned in early this morning and found out that the service was going to play early. So it
10
just
more minutes, Marge, 10 more minutes until you ask your YouTube questions.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
we're gonna
but the other thing which just left my head, so I can't talk about it. I'm at the point in my life that the one thing at a time is all I can handle. But
I'm with you.
I really think that I thought it was interesting too at the early part of the COVID crisis, people just canceled their bar mitzvahs. They postponed them. They said, like you said, Rabbi, we thought, it would only be 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and we could, and then all of a sudden people realized, no, it's pretty much now or never. Here's how we can do it. And it was with the clergy's help and the fact that every Reformed congregation in the country was dealing with that these issues worked. And in a way, it makes me very sad for the Orthodox community who won't allow electronics, and therefore they've lost. We've gained something. We gained something this week. We gained something with these two services that we never had before. And they have lost because at the very most they have 50 people, and they're afraid. And so they don't have the opportunity. And I think that's sad that Judaism has always been an adaptive religion, and to them to not adapt is.
I think everyone's adapting.
Right.
The conservative movement put out a teshuvah to allow for to have technology. I mean, you couldn't even have and so and the Orthodox community is evolving a lot too. They're doing a lot of recorded stuff to do ahead of time. And I know even in our community, they were doing, sermons on Thursday, and they've come up with really interesting creative ways to be able to, again, I think everyone is doing the best we can in the moment we are with the tools that we have. And I think even, thinking about the B'nai Mitzvah, yes, in the beginning, people postponed because as Rabbi with his example, what's the most important thing was community and connection. And then it was understanding what can that community and connection look like. So now that we're in this place where I actually think that the party, sure, all the kids want to party because they want to party, but the party is about community and connection. And, so what all of a sudden you're doing your bar bat mitzvah and you're seeing all of your family and friends right there cheering you on, sending you notes, like unmuted mazel tovs, all of a sudden it was like, oh, community and connection doesn't just have to be a party. Like that support can take on lots of different roles. And I think that was what was so significant of watching these kids really lead the way and show us, what does that mean? And to be like, yeah, now I don't even miss a party. So I think that's again, the beauty. If there's a lot of forgiveness right now that we can all sort of create that space and give each other that space and our communities that space, to be creative, to learn from each other, to do the best that we can. Yes, I agree. We're super lucky that technology is not a barrier, right? Since March 20th, like I said, I was in Poland Chapel and I said, pull out your phone and, write to somebody. And we've done that. We're going to continue to do that because we get to do that. And that's one way to connect. And so I'm super thankful for that. And I'm really impressed. I mean, I'm very impressed with what lots of communities have done to make things work. We're all trying.
Yeah, we're all doing it. Absolutely. We're doing it in really interesting ways and learning and redefining. It is so interesting. And, the truth is you need some disruptions every once in a while. I think nobody, thought, let's have a pandemic. But some of these disruptions are actually really, really healthy because we get very bound by a certain way of doing things. I think the bar mitzvah is a great example. Like we always had a party, had the DJ. My kids, the same DJ that that was at their bar mitzvah, has been doing bar mitzvahs for decades, and you think, well, that's what I have to do. And the fact that when everything gets thrown up, you just do it. You find that you can actually do it very differently, and that's pretty healthy. Marsha, I think you wanted to say something.
Yes, I did. I've enjoyed listening. I was able to share our service today with my daughter who lives in Utah, and that was a really special. And her husband is not Jewish, but she had it on her technology, and she shared some of the service with him, which is his first Rosh Hashanah. And the synagogue did just a beautiful, beautiful job. Everything about it was just incredibly well done. And so I wanted to voice that and thank you. And just the fact that you voice things happen and we create and adapt. And isn't that a life lesson? Isn't that what we have to do? And it's that thinking, I think, of everyone in the synagogue that's allowing the growth that we have. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it very much.
Rabbi?
Yes.
I just wanted to say, to add to what Marsha just said, a lot of extended CBI family with students who have graduated and moved, and I was with my daughter in Denver, and she's feeling pretty isolated from the Jewish community there. Not that there isn't one, but just that she hasn't made a connection. And it was really lovely for her to be able to services, and see Raina, hear Raina singing, because she had worked with her a lot and she was, very happy to hear. She commented to me that she loved your sermon last. It was nice for her to be able to share that.
Is Rachel in Denver? Thea, is Rachel in Denver? Okay. We'll connect her. We got lots of Denver.
We got good Denver connections.
Denver connections.
Thank you. Liz, I want to respect everyone's time. We have another event coming up at 2 o'clock.